Welcome back, GED scholars, to another Reasoning Through Language Arts exam lesson. And in this lesson, we actually have two in one. We're first going to talk about cause and effect, and then we're going to look at compare and contrast. And like some of the other RLA skills that we have covered, you want to make sure you pay attention to the fact that some of these skills are going to be used across several exams. For example, not only cause and effect will show up in your RLA exam, but you're going to see cause and effect show up in the social studies exam, and you're going to also see it show up in the science exam. I also want to bring your attention to this statement down here that talks about informational text taking up about 2/3 of the RLA exam. And folks, you're going to see around 46 questions on the exam. So 2/3 of 46 is going to be 30. So 63% or 30 of the questions that you see on the RLA exam are going to have passages that are informational. So that means that they're going to be nonfiction. And if you have a hard time with nonfiction reading, please make sure you practice. Reading is the key to passing this exam. It will not only help you with reading lengthy passages, but it'll also help you with reading comprehension. When it comes to the extended writing response and you have to write an essay, believe it or not, reading can help with that as well. But let's go ahead and get into this lesson, folks. So first up, folks, we're going to look at cause and effect, and this is an easy concept to grasp because it happens in our day-to-day lives. Things happen, and then because of something happening, the next thing happens. And so as we know that this is going to be a relationship, and because it's a relationship and we have a cause and effect, like we see on the screen with these images, we have a tornado and we have the destroyed house. Well, one of these things, the tornado, is going to be the reason why we have the results of a destroyed house. So when we want to figure out a cause, like the question up here shares with us, we might ask, well, why did this happen? So if I'm looking at the second picture right over here and I see this destroyed house, I'm going to ask, why did this happen? And the answer to that question will be my cause. And when we look at an effect, we see right up here, it's what happens. To determine the effect, we would ask, well, what was the result of the tornado showing up? It destroyed this house that we see in this picture over here on the right. Another example that you might think of in your life, especially if you are a parent, if your child does something that's not acceptable, it causes a lot of things to happen, right? It causes maybe the child to have to clean up a mess, or maybe they're placed in timeout. There's a number of things that could branch out from just one cause. Next up, let's look at compare and contrast. Compare and contrast is something you are familiar with. It is something that we are using in our day-to-day lives. We do it all the time. When you compare something, you are looking for what is similar between the items. When you contrast them, you're looking for what is different. So if someone asks me to compare these apples in the top image, I'm going to say, okay, well, what is similar about them? They're all apples. That's what's similar about them. They're all in these green baskets. Versus if I was asked to contrast the apples that we see up here in this first image, I could say, well, they're all different types of apples. We have one type of apple on the left, I know in the middle with the green grannies, and the ones on the right look like those gala apples. So I could say the type of apple is different. The color of the apples are different too. When we look at the picture below, obviously it's a lot easier to do a contrast of this one because it's not just that they're different colored apples, it's apples and pears. But if we were asked to compare this bottom picture, well, what is similar? We could say that these are fruits. And the nice thing about compare and contrast, like it is with cause and effects, but more with compare and contrast, you'll notice that there are words that pop up that help signal if it's more of a comparison or if it's going to be a contrast. So if you're comparing, you would use words like, such as, in addition to, similarly, likewise. And for contrast, we see words unlike, whereas, however, on the other hand, but, yet, in contrast. And so whenever it's on the exam, whether it's the Reasoning Through Language Arts or any of the other exams, you might receive just one passage of text. And within that one passage, you need to go through and compare and contrast items that they share in that one paragraph passage. But there may be other times where you'll notice that it's between 2 to 3 paragraphs in one passage. So it's kind of breaking up the information, which will make it easier to compare and contrast. So let's look at an example. So the passage reads, the city of Dubrovnik has a rich and complicated history. For centuries, it served as a halfway point between the Ottoman Empire and the Christian nations of Europe. After the Ottoman Empire invaded and conquered much of the Balkans, trade between the empire and Christian Europe was largely forbidden, except through the independent city-state of Dubrovnik, at the time called Ragusa. Considering the massive amount of trade that poured through Dubrovnik on the way from the east to the Italian city-states and the nations of Northern Europe, it is no surprise that the city grew immensely wealthy and developed an autonomous character. So let's go ahead and look to the right and see what we've got. So this isn't a question, it's a fill in the blank. So let's go ahead and see what it starts off with. Dubrovnik developed as a center of trade primarily because, okay, so this is a cause and effect. This top part that we see up here, this is our effect. And we need to figure out, well, what caused it? Let's look at our answer choices. So A reads, because of its location and proximity to the wealthy Italian city-states. Is that why it became a center of trade? No, just because it's close by, that's not why it became a center of trade. So I'm going to actually say A is out the window. B, Muslims and Christians refuse to engage in direct trade with one another. Okay, I'm going to set this to the side. I want to go back to my passage to double check on this one. C reads, trade between Christian Europe and the Ottoman Empire were forbidden. It should be was, but we're not going to worry about that right now. I kind of like C, so I'm going to leave C on the back burner. And then D reads, because of its unique character and system of government, automatically I'm going to say no to that one because nowhere in what we read did it talk about unique character. Well, we know system of government, it was independent, it was autonomous. That's what autonomous means. It means independent. So let's go back to B and C. So B reads, Muslims and Christians refuse to engage in direct trade with one another. So one of the things that I want to say, the reason I want to say no to B is because it's using the word Muslims. And in nowhere in the passage did it bring up the word Muslims. For those of you who know, the Ottoman Empire was ruled by Muslims, and you're like, oh, it's going to be B. I'm going to stay away from B because it's introducing a new word into the passage, and also because it's saying they refuse, and it's not necessarily because they refuse to engage. It's if we come back to the passage right here in the middle, it's telling us that trade was largely forbidden. So it's not necessarily that the Muslims and Christians refused. It's more in line with the fact that they weren't allowed to. So I'm going to say no to B, which leaves C. So let's go ahead and read the whole sentence. Dubrovnik developed as a center of trade primarily because trade between Christian Europe and the Ottoman Empire should be was, forbidden. And I'm going to say yes to C. Not because it's the only answer choice, but when we come back to our passage, folks, this middle section is really what we're looking at for the cause of it. Yes, it was nice that the city is the halfway point between the East and Western Europe, but at the same time, it's not necessarily going to be the cause of it being that center of trade. So C is going to be our answer. Thanks for watching, folks. Please make sure you understand the concept of cause and effect and you understand compare and contrast. As I mentioned, you will see this not only on the RLA exam, but you will see these types of questions on the social studies exam and the science exam. You know what you're doing, folks. Keep your head up. You've got this.